What's up, everybody? Welcome to our next installment of Daddy Discussions with the Three J's. This is episode 0102 or season 1, episode 2. On this episode, we'll try to figure out, if possible, how we as dads discipline our kids. That old wonderful phrase of how to discipline our kids, but also how a lot of times we have to be the bad guy and step in when they just won't listen to mom. But before we tackle this very divisive topic, we got some big news. You guys, can you believe it? Our first episode and all future episodes are going to be on all the streaming platforms. What do you guys think about that?
That's pretty awesome.
Crazy, huh?
Yeah.
Wherever you get your podcast, you can find us. My name is J.R. Edens. I'm one of the here with two of my dear friends and spiritual brothers on this podcast journey with Josh Arts and Jeff Mullins. We are the Three J's. What's up, guys?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey.
Anything new and exciting in your lives?
No.
No.
Not this week anyway.
Just being dads, huh?
Yeah.
Being dads.
Just living, grabbing life by the horns, I guess.
Yeah. How's the kids? Everybody's kids good?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
They're good.
Are your kids dealing with all the sickness my kids are dealing with? Yeah, it feels like
We
every
just
single
got
day
over it.
they're just passing it back and forth.
Yeah, thankfully we've missed it, but we've had our fair share lately. But this time
Wow,
around,
that's-
we've gotten away from it, thankfully.
Josh, you say your kids are just got over it?
Yeah, we had the stomach bug ran through our family about a week ago. So
Mm.
Adeline missed school Thursday and Friday of last week, so she'll be back. Well, tomorrow's an in-service day, so she's had a long weekend. And
In service, man. I wish we had in service. What's this in service thing?
well, these kids miss more school these days. Like what,
Oh,
2
man.
weeks for fall break. When did that happen?
I remember the days back when President's Day used to only be like a 3-day weekend.
Oh, I know. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. Like flex Wednesdays or Fridays or every other day. I think this day's the well, I don't know. It's just the
Yeah.
craziest thing. Like, can my kids just go to school? Goodness gracious.
Right.
Anyway, well, let's get back on topic. I'm sorry to get us off track there, but I think today's topic again, it's a very divisive topic. It's called disciplining your kids, and I think there's no better way to start a topic like this than in the Bible. What do you guys think?
Yeah, for sure.
It started in the Bible. Might as well keep on going with it. Let's see what the Bible says. In Exodus 20, for everybody that doesn't know, God gives us the 10 laws, or today we call them the 10 commandments. I think everybody kind of understands that term, the 10 commandments. And the fifth one, which shows up in verse 12, the Bible says, honor your father and mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord your God has given you. It's interesting. This is also the first of the commandments that has a promise attached to it. So basically, kids, honor your father and mother, and you might get some good out of it. How about that? So, guys, I wish my kids would read this or could read so they can read this daily. I don't know about you, but I read a story to my kids every night. We got this kids Bible that we do. I got a couple of them actually, and we try to do a story every night. And then we do prayers and everything. But do you agree that some days kids are just wild?
Yeah. So bad.
Like there's
Man.
something in the air. I don't know what sets them off, but
Yep.
there's many days I wonder how they have so much energy.
It's almost like there's a constant full moon sometimes. It's like, oh, geez, here we go again,
Yeah.
You guys feel that too?
Yeah. There's days where they wake up on a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? Man, you're preaching the gospel right there.
Yeah.
After thinking about the topic for today and reading this verse, it led me to some questions I want to kind of throw out there and let these questions kind of be the discussion for today. You guys okay if we do that? Throw some questions out there and see where it goes. Like the old kids start throw a booger on the wall, see if it sticks. So, here's where I kind of want to start off the conversation, okay? And either one of you can jump in. What's the first thought you think of when you hear the term disciplining your kids? What's the first thing that pops in your head? Either of you want to jump
Go
in?
for it, Jeff.
I think for me, it's just And that's a tough question. There's so many things that pop into my brain at first, but I think it would just have to be, I want to say, like, the first thing that comes to my mind is like keeping my kids on the straight and narrow, so to speak. Like teaching them what's right and what's wrong, and doing what's wrong has consequences. So you need to be disciplined in doing what's right, because if you don't, then, like I said, you have consequences. When they're young, obviously it's minor consequences, but as they grow older, it turns into breaking laws and potentially ended up in jail and addicted to Lord knows what and all the things. So I think it's for me, it's just, discipline is just, teaching them what's right and what's wrong, and making them, quote unquote, suffer the consequences of making bad decisions and learning from those.
Let me ask you this. Do you think discipline works?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Josh, what do you think?
When I hear the word discipline, I think more of instruction and teaching versus punishment. So yeah, I think
Oh, that's good.
learning to follow, guidelines and rules, especially as young kids, carries over as you grow up and start a career and start developing relationships with other people in your business world. I mean, it's for me, it's hard to differentiate discipline and punishing when it comes to being a parent. But yeah, I do catch myself kind of almost putting myself in check and saying, hey, your job is to be a disciple to these kids, or be an ambassador, to these kids for Christ, more than just being you know a whipping post and trying to constantly punish them for doing things because they're kids. I mean, they're going to mess up
Yeah.
more times than they're going to get it right. So
Jeff, let me ask you this. And then I'll ask both of you. We'll start with Jeff on this question. Do you think spankings or timeout or a combination of the two?
I know
It's a
personally.
that's where we start getting into the divisive part of the conversation, right? So
I think, well, I mean, I can only speak for what we do in our house, right? We do both, but we reserve spankings for a little bit more serious consequences. Like, we don't just, you spilled on the floor and it was a complete accident, here's a spanking, you know what I mean? Like, we reserve that for the more serious, I guess you can say, offenses, if, for lack of a better word. Timeouts for sure. My kids hate timeouts. They're a little more, obviously they're a little more effective than spankings, because I feel
you
like,
think so? Wow.
well, at least with my kids, right? Because my kids, when they get spanked, they go into complete, like, shut down panic mode. Here comes mom or dad that's going to spank me, I'm freaking out. But with time, and like timeouts, they hate time. I mean, they hate being spanked just as much as timeouts. But timeouts, I feel, kind of gives me the opportunity to, like Josh said, be that teacher and instructor. Like, after the timeout's over, okay, now we're going to talk about why you got in trouble and what we can learn from it and stuff like that. And that's a big change for us recent. My wife and I, especially me, with my career background choice, being military and law enforcement and stuff like that, prior law enforcement, I've developed a kind of a short fuse, and sometimes that gets taken out on the kids, unfortunately. And I've been working on it, and we've been really working on, like we had talked about earlier, really just talking through things instead of resorting straight to anger and stuff like that. So, and timeouts kind of give us the better option to talk things through. But don't get me wrong. I mean, my kids still do some things that gets them spanked, but
What do you think, Josh? What do you do? Do you do spankings or timeouts or both?
This is a hard one. My wife and I have struggled with kind of what to do, and I guess now that we're more talking about the the repercussions of not listening or disobeying. As of today, we have not spanked our kids. They're Adeline just turned 6, and then got 4 and 2-year-olds. So I just looking back, as a kid, I can't compare some of the things that my kids are doing now to some of the big dumb decisions I made as a kid. So we haven't done the spankings yet. Very rarely do we put the kids in timeout either. For us, more just finding some type of activity that kind of fits the crime seems to work better for us. You might think we're crazy for doing very little of that, but I mean,
I
for the
think
most part, our kids are pretty good.
Yeah, I think everybody has their own way as long as it teaches the kid something, right? Like so I'm kind of in between both of you, right? So for me and our household with my wife, we have done probably more of trying to, well, let me rephrase it. For Annalie, she's about to turn 5. We probably all me. Ashley hasn't really done any spankings at all. It's just been me whenever I have had to spank her. It's like you said, Jeff, it's been really serious stuff. And I don't know how you can quantify serious. Everybody's probably different, but it's something where it's literally like we would consider to be severe. I maybe spanked her, maybe she's about to turn 5, maybe I would say 10 times tops in her life, maybe.
Yeah.
And for everybody listening out there, if you do or don't spank him, there's not a right or wrong way. Don't start emailing us saying, "Hey, you're an awful dad because you're spanking your kids" or anything. Just this is just what we do, and we're not beating our kids. We just give a spanking from time to time. But my youngest, who's just turned 2, I think I maybe spanked her twice in her whole life, and those are like little pats because obviously she just started diaper training, or excuse me, potty training, so she's still in diapers, so she can't really feel it anyway. Unless I really get into it, I'm not going to do that. So it's just enough to kind of give her a shock, if you will. I think for my kids, we've done timeout, or if we taken, if they're get their time to watch TV, which we set a certain time during the day, 30 minutes or whatever, that they can watch TV an hour at the most. If we took that away from them, that seems to work way better than anything else. They can't watch Paw Patrol, life is ending. I'm just saying. You know what I'm saying? So that's for us, is we've noticed, especially with our oldest, that you take Paw Patrol or TV away, man, it's world's falling apart, So that's where we've kind of gone. It is a very divisive question. It's a tough one. Let me ask. That kind of leads to my next thought, and Jeff, I'll leave with you on this one. Were spankings a part of your childhood, or how was you or any siblings that you may have raised either with or without spankings? What was a part of your life?
Honestly, I don't, thinking back, like I don't remember being spanked. I want to say though, if I was, it was, like I said, it's like super serious stuff, or kind of more stuff that I guess you could say deserved it. But my parents were, they're it's kind of hard to explain because I don't really remember much of my childhood, but thanks to my horrible memory. But I only remember like maybe once or twice, like if it was more of like Josh was saying, like it was more your punishment kind of fits the crime, so to speak. And thinking back to a little bit, elaborating on our last question a little bit too, I've kind of noticed having the bigger gap between the older daughter and the younger daughter, like I've learned that discipline is changing the older they get, like it's not, you don't discipline the same. And then, I've had to learn that with the older one. Like I can't discipline her the same as I discipline my 4-year-old because
Right.
they're at different stages of their life,
And the world's different. Let's be honest.
Yeah, yeah. So, but no, I don't really remember being spanked much as a kid, but I mean that was a long time ago. So,
Josh, what about you, buddy? I know that you got an interesting, you know, you're talking a little bit early, some of your story. How was that discipline a part of your childhood?
Yeah, spankings, whoopings were definitely part of growing up for me.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I've got two biological brothers. Our mom passed away at an early age, so we lived with our grandmother till I was about 12, and she was a 5'7" full-blooded German. I mean, if I had lived with her until later high school years, she probably would have bare knuckle boxed me out in the backyard. Like,
Wow.
so yeah, she was a spanker, and then I was adopted when I was 12, and my adopted parents were pretty under the impression that spare the rod, spoil the child was a real thing. And I mean, it was never physical abuse, but yes, spankings
Yeah.
were a part of that. And even in high school, I can remember getting spanked by the coaches in front of the classroom. So like
Wow.
you said, times have changed. That
Yeah.
type of stuff doesn't happen anymore. So.
I can tell you for me, I my mom had to work. My parents, I think I told this in the last episode. My parents are divorced. when I was a really, really young kid, and so I spent a lot of my childhood living with my grandparents. My mom was obviously always there, but she was working, trying to make the ends meet because my dad wasn't always around because he works. So he was trying to grow a career of his own, So I lived with my grandparents, and my grandfather was he grew up on the farm, so he definitely. I remember one time he had a garage that was like a detached garage and it had two doors in the front, the old timey doors with the little windows across the top. And he attached the basketball goal above in between the two of them, right? And I love basketball. I was sports as a whole is a big part of my childhood. And I'm out there playing and shooting. And I got this great idea. I'm gonna act like I'm hitting a half court shot to win the game from the front of the house. Garage on the back of the house. I throw it across the driveway, hits that window, crushes it into a million pieces. My grandfather is on the back porch, just rocking in his chair, just like I'm doing right now. He walks out there, he goes, "Son, go grab you a switch." I'm like, "Excuse me, what?" He goes, "Yeah, go grab you a switch." I'm thinking, all right, I got this figured out. I'll go get the small, skinny one. That ain't gonna hurt. Oh no, that whip, I'll never forget that. That's the rest of my life. And now I don't do that to my kids. For everyone out there listening, I don't need any emails. That's not what I do to my kids. But yeah, that was the enlightenment of my life that I needed to, discipline. So let me ask you a question, and this is going to go a little off script. So I'm going to throw a little teaser question out there to you guys. Do you correlate discipline to love, or vice versa, love to discipline? Josh, start with this time.
I think there definitely should be some correlation. I catch myself kind of reacting in the moment with children, especially at a young age. Um, and then after, I've had a second to catch my breath, thinking that didn't come across as, very lovingly, or does that conversation I had with my 2-year-old leave him feeling like daddy loves me and cares about me and wants me to be safe, or was he just raising his voice at me because he's angry with me and disappointed? So yeah, I think discipline and love should go hand in hand. I think if you can take a second and step back and really prepare your heart and mind for investing in your kids, it'll show.
What do you think?
yeah, I'd have to agree on that one. And this coming from a guy that, like I said, I've had my fair share of anger issues. And I've really taken a mental preparation, I guess you could say, where if I do need to go in and discipline my kids, I take that second to myself to kind of get myself ready, right? So I don't just go in and act out of anger, because a lot of times, I'm not perfect, but a lot of times I act out of anger. Whether it's I've had a long day at work and I'm got a short fuse, or they're not listening, and it's the 20th time I've told them to stop doing something and they're still doing it, and I just kind of lose it. But recently, I've really wanted to get away from that, so I do take that kind of moment to myself before I go in there or into the bedroom, or if they're outside or wherever, whatever the case may be, to kind of make sure that I am disciplining out of love versus disciplining out of anger. So it can be a learning experience and they learn from it, instead of, like Josh said, dad's just coming in and yelling at me and why is he yelling at me? I don't know. You know what I mean? So
I think for me, to your point, both of you said it. I mean, I think it's easy to, excuse me. It's easy to say that love and discipline are tied together, right? And I look at my own way of fatherhood, and it just brings me back to so many times that I've failed or I could have done better. That makes sense. And yeah, I was just thinking about earlier today, and we left church and we're headed home, and before our small group that all three of us are part of, Annie, my oldest, had done something, and I kind of got onto her, and I asked her, I said, Annie, I got onto you like for the last 3 or 4 days in a row. She's like, yeah, I know. I'm like, don't you get tired of me getting onto you? She's like, yeah. I'm sure thinking, okay, how do I respond to this now? Like, okay, wow, I wasn't expecting the yes there. Okay, it made me think I need to step back and probably loosened. Like you said, I got a little. I don't know if it's OCD or if it's type A or anger issues or all the above. Sometimes I just get frustrated because I know my kid is really smart and she talks and acts above her age level. And then I forget that she's still only 4, about to be 5. And I'm so used to her being so above her mindset and age, and she's really not. And I'm like, JR, remember, she's 4 years old. Come on. And my wife reminds me a lot. Hey, she's 4. Come on, calm down. I'm like,
I think it's tough as parents because we expect, like you said, we know what our kids are capable of, and we expect a lot out of them, and then it's hard to remember that, hey, they're learning life. Just they're learning it a lot more than we are because they are new to the earth and got so many new experiences and things they know nothing about that their brain can't comprehend yet. I catch myself having to do that all the time. Like, they're just kids. Like, accidents happen.
And also, I think for me, a couple weeks ago, we got the privilege and the blessing from God to be able to go on vacation. We go to Cancun, and one of the days we're there, we got a chance to swim with the dolphins. Right, got to go across and do this little thing. We stand there, and there's this trainer comes up, and they kiss you on the cheek, and you're petting them, all the things, and my 2-year-old was freaking out. I mean, freaking out. This fish is going to eat her. I'm starting thinking, it's just a dolphin. But and after the fact, I'm starting throwing, she's 2. She's never seen a dolphin before. I didn't comprehend this. Like, she's never seen a dolphin before. She's never touched a dolphin before. Like, it's just a dolphin. But to her, it's this big whale that's about to eat her or something like that. And I started thinking, man, JR, come on, get your head out of your rear end. Like, what are you doing? And I fight this battle a lot because I'm like, I don't comprehend that they're experiencing things for the first time that I've done all my life, And does that ever hit you guys like it does me?
Yeah, all the time.
Any examples or anything you want to pop out there? I mean, I'm throwing a lot of stuff out there right now, but I mean, anything that you see like where this stuff hits you like it does me? Josh?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I feel like all three of my kids just impress me and blow my mind some days with how smart they are. Um, Eli said something on the way to small group tonight. Adeline saw a pair of pants stuck in a tree, and he made up a joke about it being a pantry instead of like tree pants. I was like, dude, that's pretty smart. Like, how did he come up with that so fast? But then you think it's a good idea to take Play-Doh and smash it into the carpet. So yeah, it's like how is this the same person? You know, they act totally different some days, but yeah, it's a constant. You just got to remember they're kids, and they're soaking up so much information every day. I mean, I'm probably as smart as I'm ever going to be, you know, but these kids are learning so much on a daily basis, and yeah.
Jeff, do you ever think God thinks about that with us? He just said that, they're learning something every day and they're like, how is this the same person? You ever think God thinks the same thing about us, Jeff?
I want to say yes, but I know that God knows our full potential already. Um, he knew and knows our plan for us since before we were even a thought in our parents' mind. But I would like to think that especially like for me, I'm just now stepping into like real faith and made that like full time, like I'm not lukewarm anymore in my faith. Like I want to be full in and all that stuff. And there's bumps in the road, and I would like to think, our God's a loving God and is forgiving and all the things. And I would like to think that if I stumble, God's like, it's all right, picks me up, dusts off my rear end, and kind of pats me along the way, pats me going again,
Yeah. Visual little baby naked Jeff walking around patting him on the butt. Sorry, I just thought that was where my mind went. Sorry.
With the
sorry.
mustache. Yeah.
Yeah, with the mustache. Yeah.
Yeah.
Guys, let me ask you this. Talking about, I can give you 1,000 examples where I feel as a father every day, but do you think that the culture we live in, we're living in 2022, a lot of crazy going on in the world, TV, media, culture, cancel culture, or whatever it's called today. You think that the way you visualize what's going on in the world affect the way you parent your kids? Does it change the way you parent your kids? Do you look at, all the crazies on the news and go, man, I not do that. I don't want to raise one of those.
I think I catch myself being a little bit more protective, and guarding their minds. Having daughters, I hope they don't raise up to be one of those girls that shows things they shouldn't be showing on the internet, or doing things they shouldn't be doing. And they're young.
College.
Yeah, they're young. They don't need to see anything closely related to that. So I just find myself like, oh, Daddy, we found this new show. Well, let me watch the show first before you can watch it, so I can make sure that what you're watching is okay for you to watch. And that wasn't a thing when I was growing up. Like I would just turn on the TV and whatever was on. You know what I mean? Yeah, I just find myself being more protective, knowing what the world's like outside of the walls of my house. So
that's what you think.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like you said, it's 2022. Times have really changed since we were kids. I'm watching Adeline walk into kindergarten, and there's second and third graders on their cell phones, and
yeah,
like you said, Jeff, we didn't have cell phones, and I don't think I had a cell phone until after high school. And Pastor Barry put some
college.
JR probably had a pager. I can see.
I did actually.
Yeah,
I actually had the big Zach Morris brick phone. Remember that?
Oh, nice.
Those,
The antenna.
Oh yeah.
Pastor Barry put something on service screen this morning about Blue's Clues, and it just like blew my mind. That was one of the shows I didn't think we had to worry about with our kids. So yeah, there's so many different avenues of information the kids have access to these days. I mean, I can remember writing an essay paper and going to the library and pulling out encyclopedias. Now everything's on a computer and internet. So yeah, like you said, Jeff, I feel like you're constantly on your toes about where you take your kids and who you let your kids play with, and just even the extracurricular activities for after school programs and stuff. It's just a constant stress of what are my kids being exposed to.
That makes me think of something else. Have you ever looked at we all three of us go to the same church, and for those out there listening, it's a pretty large church, got multiple campuses, online campus, pretty big. You ever look at other families, I guess best way to put it, or kids at church and go, man, I got to keep up with the Joneses. Like their kids are great at this, and this, and this. You ever think of like that? I gotta start now. My kids are behind. Like, you ever think like that? If they ever pop in your head, like, let me make an example. Josh, your oldest daughter, 6. And my daughter was in daycare with yours, and they were in class together, and your daughter's now in gymnastics, and my kid's a year behind yours, but they're close, and she constantly, I need to get in gymnastics, and I've tried to, I watch it and go, man, it's like she's so behind. I gotta do something here. So it's that kind of that keeping up with the Joneses scenario, but with your discipline. Do you ever you guys, either one of you ever think like that?
And Jeff was there this morning. Tabitha and I work in the TOTS department at church, and I'm not going to say it sheds some light on kind of how we're, succeeding and failing as parents, but I mean, to be able to experience even an hour with some of those kids, and just, I mean, a lot of kids enjoy that structure, and if you can tell that, some kids don't get that at home. So for me, it's kind of an eye opener, like, okay, well, maybe we're not doing so bad after all. After spending an hour with 20 kids, it's like, all right, I think I can make it through another week with my 3. So
Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, today was my first day serving in the TOTS, and there was some kids in there. I was like, man, y'all are wild and crazy. But you wouldn't.
That's why I don't do the TOTS. Just throwing it out there.
But like you think about like the parents, and like, oh man, their mom and dad are so great. They're such good people, such down to earth, like totally chill, like get along with them great. And then I was at Top Spot today. I was like, man, these kids are crazy. But then it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. They're kids, right? They're in a room full of toys, and
they're also going to kind of follow the leader, right? So I mean, if they see one go crazy, they kind of follow the leader, and they all go crazy, right?
It's funny you say that, because there was one little boy I was giving high fives to, and I was messing with him, and he'd high five me, and I'd act like he'd hurt me really bad. And then I'd turn around and I have like 6 kids just like beating me, all slapping me on my legs and my arms. And I was like, how did a high five turn into me getting mauled by a bunch of little kids,
That's hilarious. No, I mean, you're right. I mean, we have friends over that have kids or whatever, and I never will forget this. This happened about a year ago. My wife's family, they're all from Iowa, right? So she has some friends that are all over in a part of the country. Wonderful people, wonderful kids, and they came over for the first time, and they brought their kids, and they again, kind of structure driven, right? My kids are kind of too, and they came in, they were kind of just bouncing off the walls, and my kids were going, "Is this okay? Like, can I do this?" Like in our house, I'm still going, no, you cannot do that. No, don't watch them. And it was all good. It was just different, right? And that's what I'm talking about. Like it's like, okay, you don't want to, again, do the keeping up the Joneses thing. We kind of like, my kids are pretty awesome. Yeah, they get a little crazy sometimes, but they're pretty awesome, right? And do you discipline? Let me ask you a question that's gonna, I think, really gonna stir the conversation. Do you guys discipline different than your wife?
In our
Is
house, yeah, we do.
who's the sheriff? Let me throw that out there. Let me throw it a different way. Who's the sheriff in the house? And it all stops with him. Yeah, that's me too. Yeah.
But I think it kind of comes down to, I mean, if you think about it though, like mom is, and I say this, I preface this by saying like us as dads, right? We love our kids. We love nurturing our kids, but mom is like the nurturer, right? Mom was the one that fed them when they were babies and spent the most time with them. And, so moms naturally have that more softer nurture side, right? And dads are a little rough around the edges sometimes, when we end up having to be the end all be all when mom's at her wit's end and the kids aren't listening.
Yeah, I mean, I think my kids are probably more well behaved when mom's not around, just because they know I don't have the patience that she does, and I'm
Tell the wife.
yeah. I mean, honestly, you catch a weekend where it's just you're full blown daddy duty, and it's like, man, these kids are kind of walking the fine line. They're doing what they're supposed to, and then mom comes back in town, and it's like, all right, we can let loose. And I think Jeff said a little bit of this. I think kids are gonna act their worst when they're the most comfortable, and that's when they're around their mom. But yeah, I don't think Tabitha's had to say, "Let me go get your dad," more than a handful of times. But when she does, the kids know, okay, we're probably getting in trouble now. So
Funny you said that. This weekend, my wife was at our church. They had a women's retreat this weekend, so I was playing single dad this weekend, and pretty chill, pretty awesome. How they were acting, and everything. The wife comes home this afternoon, and they get up from nap, and of course they didn't get a long nap, and then we had to rush to get to our small groups and stuff. But then they come down, and there's a little beach ball we had blown up that we were playing with at the beach when we were there, and still here. And as soon as she walks down, she sees mom, she picks up, throws it at the TV on the wall. I'm like, what are you doing? You didn't do this all weekend. She walks in and you throw the TV. Oh, I was just like, goodness gracious. Yeah. So to your point, like I think, it's like you said, it's the nourishing versus the sheriff mentality. It's the comfort versus structure mentality. It's the whatever you want to symbolize those two things. It's a different feel, at least in my house. So it's interesting to see that you guys are doing the same thing. Jeff, any other examples? Anything?
No, I was just gonna say, like, I mean, you think about all the way back to, I mean, I guess you could say colonial times. Like mom was always the one at home providing food, like cooking dinner, do all the nurturing things, right? Making sure you have clean clothes and all the things. And dad was out working. And I mean, but I mean, it's obviously different because it's 2022, but it's the same, right? Like for my household, my wife doesn't, she's a stay-at-home mom. So mom's at home. She's cleaning, she's making sure that they're fed, she's doing all this stuff while I'm at work. And then, I come home at the end of the day after everyone's at wit's end, and I have to kind of restructure the house a little bit.
Yeah, it's definitely seems like to be the case. And now here's a question just popped in my head. I think that's going to be a interesting one because we all have multiple kids. But have you changed the way you discipline your kids as you've added more to the household? As the the chicken coop has gotten bigger. has the discipline from child 1 to child 2 for me, and then child 2 to child 3 discipline changed for you guys? Jeff, we'll start with you this time.
Yeah, I would say yes. You have to realize, well, let me go back. Once we started having more than one, we made sure, unless it was all of them getting in trouble, we made sure to not discipline or yell at the one that was in trouble in front of the other kids. We tried again, there's no one's perfect. But we try to have the mentality of discipline in private, praise in public, and in that way they're not being embarrassed by me yelling at them if I am yelling, or if they're getting sternly talked to in front of their sisters. But then also, though, we've added more, but like I said, the older they get, the more the discipline is changing, right? Like, I don't spank as much as I do when they were younger. Now it's more consequential stuff, right? You didn't clean your room, so now you don't get to have TV before bedtime, and that's your consequence. Or you were disrespectful to mom, so now you're gonna have a consequence that makes you learn your lesson on that one. And we're finding that, that as they're getting older, that stuff is working, or that type of discipline is working more than the whole spanking was when they were younger. So,
What about you, Josh?
I definitely think we've changed how we discipline based on the kid's personality. I mean, my oldest, Adeline, I can walk into a room and kind of just look at her, and she'll know what's going on and what she needs to do. Whereas, the two younger boys, that they do need some more constructive criticism on a more regular basis. Even Eli is, I feel like, because he's been around Adeline, his older sister, he kind of knows more what we expect out of him. And then Colton's just a bull in a china shop. So yeah, with him, it's definitely, and that, you brought a good point up, Jeff. I really like that, because I feel like I'm constantly getting on to Colton in front of the other two, and that, it may not affect Adeline and Eli much, but I wonder how that makes a 2-year-old feel in front of his older siblings, being corrected. I mean, even at that age, I can see he gets embarrassed sometimes. And that's probably not what he needs to be focused on, being embarrassed in front of his siblings. He needs to be focused on, I did this, I'm being corrected because daddy doesn't want me to fall off the, fireplace and bust my head open.
yeah.
So I think I'm going to try that, even if it means I got to pick him up and take him into another room. I think that's good. I like that.
Yeah. And we make sure too, like when we're talking to them, we pull them aside. Sarah and I try to, like, here's what you did wrong, right? Or sometimes it's, what was your thought process behind that? Why did you think that was okay? Right? Like earlier today, I told the story at our small group earlier. Jordan, my middle child, got so mad at her younger sister, she decided she needed to be hit with a book. So I pulled Jordan aside.
Makes sense.
Yeah, right. I pulled her aside, and I just asked her, I was like, what were you thinking? Like, what was going through your brain? And I was, being a grown person, I was thinking of expecting such an elaborate answer. And she goes, she wasn't helping me clean my room. And it made me so mad that I wanted to hit her. So then, I had to explain to her, like, hey, if you get into those situations, like, walk away. We especially don't hit our sisters. We regard family very, very high in our family. you know, we don't hit in general, but also we don't hit our family. We don't talk back to family. We love family. Family is very important. And then, you know, I always try to make it a teaching lesson. Like, if you can't control your anger, you got to separate yourself from that situation. Or if you're doing the reason you got in trouble because you were climbing on something you weren't supposed to climb on, and if you fell and hit your head or you fell on broken arm, you know, we always kind of make it a teaching point. So that, you know, that may also help with Colton too, you know, just try to give him a reason why he's being talked to or being disciplined.
Yeah, I think that for us, we've been doing a lot of timeouts here lately with Raymond. And when she gets done, like, well, I ask, you want to go get in timeout? Yes. Now she'll go sit there, and she'll go sit herself and just. And then you can almost see, like, she'll get there for 30 seconds or a minute, and then she'll be like, it's almost like you just see the weight come off her chest, right? And when Annalie does that, my oldest, she sits in timeout, she just kind of sits there and she's in a little shell. It's not the same reaction. I believe two different kids. I'll bring her out of her timeout, however long she's been there, and say, let's talk about, like, what led you to this? Like, why did you think that this was okay? And most times she's like, I don't know. I'm like, nah, I don't know. Answer doesn't work. Let's dive in deeper. I need you to comprehend this. I understand it because I'm old. I need you to understand why this is not okay. And I think it's definitely helped, but yeah, I'm definitely going to use some of that for sure. I think that kind of going back to where we kind of started. I mean, I think this all leads to the fact that it's hard to discipline without love. And I think that, throughout the Bible, throughout history, throughout all of our lives, we've seen that whenever we've been disciplined the proper way, that we can comprehend why we did something wrong. We've learned from it. And most time we've gotten better because of it. And I think, I've learned from you guys tonight that I've got to be better at that myself as a father. I've got to be better at, learning how to discipline my kids better. And I hope that whoever's listening to this can understand that too, that it comes down to it. We're just trying to love our kids. And we don't want them to, I know for me personally, I tell this story a lot to my wife and to others, is I made so many stupid mistakes when I was younger. We can all probably agree that. And I just don't want my kids to make the same mistakes. And I just want to see them be so much farther along, so much better than I ever was, because they already are. And if I learn anything from how to discipline my kids, it's just showing them love through it, because I know that they're already so much farther along at 4 and 2 than I ever was. So just to see where their potential is amazing. I know you guys kids are the same. The potential in our kids are just amazing. The access to information is so much different, so they're going to be smarter, you hope. I didn't have that access to them. I mean, you talked about encyclopedias earlier, Josh. They literally went door to door, and I was a kid. That's how old I am. They were selling them at the front door. Okay, you buy the entire encyclopedia, or you can buy 2 now. You get A and B. You can get C next month. That's how old I am. They were literally selling them door to door. They didn't have 2 clicks and access to everything. So discipline as a whole is so important in every aspect of our lives. I know that we've been focusing on our kids, but if you don't learn discipline as a human, there's no law and order, and really you don't ever learn anything. What do you guys think about that?
That's pretty accurate statement.
Guys, it's been an awesome discussion. I think, since we started with the Bible, let's end with the Bible. What do you guys think about that? Hebrews 12:11 says this: for the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. And I think the most important piece is the last 3 words: those who have been trained by it. Right. So as long as you're learning something from the discipline, you're hopefully going to get better. Right. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that's the whole point of discipline.
Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you have, a lot of us drop kids off, or we head out the door and tell the kids bye, and you've got 8 or 10 hours during the day that you've got to be disciplined. That came from somewhere. You didn't just wake up one morning and you were disciplined on going to work and doing what you were supposed to. So it's a learning process.
Yep. Well, guys, we've been going for a little over 40 minutes now. It's been a pretty awesome discussion. You guys, any last words you want to throw out there before we close up?
Just keep trying. Parenting's hard. Being a dad's hard. Just, make choices every day to be better.
I said something and I meant to elaborate on it. You try to remember your kids are always going to be on their best behavior, probably when they're in a stressed situation. When they go to school, they know what they're supposed to do. So they're trying to make you proud. And if you're getting those good reports from school, and then you pick your kids up and they're acting like fools in the back seat of the truck, remember, they're able to breathe a little bit and they can relax. I mean, I know I get home from work and untuck my shirt and kick my shoes off. So that's how they are. They get around mom and dad and they feel comfortable. So I try to remind myself that every day, that, hey, they've been, under, rules and regulations all day. So let me take a step back and just let them enjoy being home for a little bit.
I think I often have to tell myself, and not tell myself because I don't remember it, just tell myself because it is so true that kids are the only thing God gives you that the moment you see them, you have unconditional love for. There's nothing else in the world, nothing. At the moment you see them, you have unconditional love for them. Your wife or your spouse, you grow in love for them. You grow in your commitment, in your commandment to them. But with kids, it's the only thing that's given to us, especially as dads, that the moment you see them, you have unconditional love for them. And I think if you discipline with love, and just remember that you're disciplining in love because you have unconditional love from the moment you saw them, it should make some of the stress from you as the father and from the kid a little bit easier, right? You guys would agree?
Yeah,
absolutely.
This concludes day discussions with the Jays. I want to remind everyone about our purpose, and our purpose is very simple: to showcase how we sometimes succeed and mostly fail. That's a joke for everybody. I didn't catch that. At being dads, we say that with laughter, but really we want to talk how God has blessed us as being dads. I mean, I think that comes down to we are just so blessed to just have our kids, and we just love them so much. Just maybe this will help someone with their families change any generational pitfalls that they may have had to make their future generations better, especially in their walk with Jesus. If you like what you hear, give us a 5-star rating on any of our social media things we've got going on. We've got a wonderful email address, daddydiscussionspodcast@gmail.com. Give us an email. If you like what you hear here, got any questions about what we're talking about, I don't know if we'll have answers. We'll do our best. And if you have any ideas about future discussions or future episodes, throw them out there. Let's talk about it. That's what this is all about. Thank you so much for listening. We love you. And just remember, God loves you, and so does your dad. Have a good night, guys.
see ya.